I mean, I guess, dude. What the... Yes, the tangle. Well, after getting burned out on PvP for over a month due to a mysterious and unknown reason, as the first weekend of Trials gets underway, I realized that I have absolutely no idea what loadout to run. But since I did get, one or two comments on the last video expressing interest, I figured now was as good a time as any to start practicing with some strand builds in preparation for the inevitable sequel. My buddy Owl and I both did the Lightfall campaign on Hunter, so we decided to workshop a Threadrunner build together using the brand new exotic helmet, whose pronunciation I will not be attempting. The pieces of the build crafting puzzle are as follows. The new helmet gives hunters 10 seconds of woven mail just for activating a grapple. In PvE, woven mail gives 60% damage resistance, but inside PvP it's actually 25%, which is still crazy strong. What makes woven mail an extremely unique buff is that it only covers your body and leaves your head completely unprotected. So in contrast to something like Void Overshield, you have to be a little bit more clever to get good value out of the resistance. More specifically, you really want to fight in ranges where the enemy can't easily headshot you, which oftentimes means fighting either really up close or really far away. Fighting against any primary weapon that's within that weapon's optimal distance is gonna feel like you don't have any buff at all, especially against things like hand cannons. Additionally, because we're relying on our grapple grenade for woven mail, we can already guarantee that Thread of Generation is going to be used with this build, and since we're aiming to take really fast and scrappy gunfights, a high rate of fire primary is most likely going to be the perfect weapon to maximize the value and uptime of our woven mail. With all this information in mind, there was one clear choice of primary weapon to pair with the build, and that is the Tarrabah. Anytime I work with a build involving heavy use of damage resistance or healing, Tarrabah is usually the first weapon I consider, as building Ravenous Beast becomes extremely easy if you stay in gunfights for longer. In general, when using Tarrabah, you want to be doing lots of damage and you want to be taking lots of damage. You do not want to switch weapons, and you also do not want to die. Dying is bad, you heard it here first. From there, the gameplay loop with Tarrabah and Threadrunner is actually pretty cool. Similar to Thread of Generation, we can build Tarrabah's Ravenous Beast perk just by doing damage and taking damage. So while Woven Mail lets you take more hits per gunfight to build Ravenous faster, it also lets you deal more hits per gunfight to build Ravenous faster, which also gets you your grapple energy back faster, so you can use Woven Mail again, rinse and repeat. And yes, as I'm editing this, I see the hot new Tarrabah nerf that Bungie just released. But the thing is, with the way that Tarrabah is used in builds like this, these nerfs really don't matter that much if you're a, quote, savvy player, unquote. Let me explain. The first nerf is to the amount of Ravenous charge you get from taking damage. Going back to this clip again, you can see that I build Ravenous Beast from 0 to full in a single gunfight. This is possible due to the combination of all the hits I land on the Titan and all the immortal shots that the Warlock lands on me. Bungie does explicitly state in the notes that the nerf is to target this exact situation, which makes sense. But the thing is, we're running max recovery for a reason, baby. You see, taking 2 or 3 gunfights to build Ravenous is just not an issue, and you can even reapply Woven Mail in between fights thanks to the Widow's Silk aspect. And this ties into the other nerf, which is to the weapon zoom. This one makes sense as well, as Tarrabah was undeniably a stat monster even without Ravenous, but here's the savvy secret that Bungie's not telling you. Ravenous Beast is based on hits, not damage. Remember, the nerf is only to the damage you take, not the damage you deal. When you land 10 shots from here or 10 shots from the other side of the map while getting maximum damage fall off, the amount of Ravenous charge you build is the same. So while the zoom nerf is definitely going to hurt the weapon in outright duels, especially against the Immortal, that wasn't exactly the end goal of this build.
Switch close. Here in a sec.
Make them run. Make them run. You.
Man, you're giving.
They don't know about the tech, baby. That's my boy, the 1v3 Tarrabah.
Anyways, with the main pieces in place, we can go ahead and polish off the build. I go with a sniper to give myself a long range option, and also because I wanted to try this body shot melee combo, which I only landed once the entire weekend. My friend Owl went with a shotgun instead, and actually ended up smacking me around one game just by being hyper aggressive. As far as subclass choices go, Thread of Ascent is an obvious one for a grapple heavy build. The airborne effectiveness boost is fantastic, the free reload on grapple is pretty clutch in 1v3 Ravenous Beast situations, and the free 10 mobility ability is also just a nice touch for hunters. The suspend dive is also obviously amazing, and yet another way to build free Tarrabah charge, so I like to use Thread of Continuity and Thread of Mind to maximize the suspend uptime and round off our Woven Mail Trials build. I should also mention the super briefly. I played 114 games that weekend and got my super charged a whopping 3 times total, so I can't give a ton of insight on it, but it seems like so long as you remember to use the infinite grapples, dodges, and dives throughout its duration, it's definitely a tough thing to deal with. As a final note, I do also want to give my honest rating of the build as a whole. It's definitely a 10 out of 10 in the fun department. I had a blast swinging around Rocket, going for absolutely unhinged plays all weekend that usually just got me killed, but in terms of effectiveness, in the current sandbox, I don't think I could give it higher than a 6 or 7. In a future meta, I could see this build being S tier, but the fact of the matter is that right now it just straight up loses to basically everything that's popular. Because Woven Mail doesn't protect your head, and the build requires fighting in SMG range, anyone with a decent immortal shot is gonna fry you like the damage resist isn't even there, which it kinda isn't. Anyways, I'll definitely be saving this build as a possible Strand Hunter option. The upcoming aggressive SMG nerf will of course include the Tarrabah as well, but like I said before, if you're playing around building Ravenous specifically, then whatever blanket nerf Bungie hands out isn't going to slow down the beast too much. I'm planning on trying out ZKMushroom's Threadrunner build next weekend, which looks really cool. I'll put a link to that video in the description if you're interested. I'm also going to be trying some more trials challenges soon, maybe once the meta has shifted a little bit more, but if you have any wacky challenge ideas you want to see me try, feel free to let me know. Anyways, I don't really know how to do outros and I've stalled this video long enough, so I'm just going to cut and ship it. Bye.